So I'm sure someone was worried that my first impression of the Gundam series would be SD Gundam World Hero, the kids show which also doubles as a commercial, in the vain hope that I'll turn one of the kids that watch it into a whale that'll buy all the various figures. Again, that's a bit cynical, and I'm sure the intended audience enjoys it, as it teaches the value of friendship as a robot Wukong visits the various themed lands to gather the flavored MacGuffins and collect a gaggle of representatives to do the final fight with. But it's also 26 episodes long, and I was good, after one episode. So Gundam's F3 debut is delayed to another day. I'll say, if you're a kid who likes Gundam, then give it a go, but it'll be taking the Maetu spot on the rankings for 2021. Now let's cover the actual mecha series I watched, Rumble Garanndoll, a series about Hosamichi, a guy who works as a host to pay off a comically oversized debt, but he lives in a Japan taken over by the militaristic True Army, who uses mechs to carry out the peace and crush what they believe weakens Japan, which is rather nebulous, but more on that later. But they attack the city to flesh out the rebels, and Hosamichi gets stuck in the battle and hops into a mech for safety. But the mech activates, and he's told by the battery girl, who seems to be powering the mech, to believe in the power of anime, and he's able to fight off the attack. But doing so gets him roped into the rebels, and his debt collector won't let him leave, so he must now fight the military using the power of otaku culture. Now let's break down that summary. So first off, the rebels are just otakus from Akibara, defending the last vestige of Japanese nerd culture, a culture that the True Army sees as the reason why Japan is weak. Also, the True Army are just authoritarian fascists from another Japan that won World War II. This does make making any of the villains redeemable in the possibility because, they're fascist. So that really just sinks any moment of the hero's question, what if they have a point? Because again, they're fascist. It also kind of ignores the issue that otaku culture is currently having, since it's already infested with these types of assholes. But I'm losing the plot of the review. To fight back, they use a Garanndoll, a mech that can change its shape depending on the battery girl that powers it. The Garanndoll takes the girl's enthusiasm for X topic and channels it into power. For example, Rin has a deep love of anime, specifically a nautical mech anime. Thus, the Garanndoll takes the form of a shark-based mech similar to her beloved show. While Yuki, who is an idol, makes the Garanndoll take the form of a bunny, because her bunny aesthetic. But through this, we get a simple enough battle system, with a big endgame being that we can swap forms on the fly. This gives us some decent enough fights to satisfy. Character-wise, I really like Rin, because she has the best dynamic with Hosamichi, as they both have a history of liking the same show, and she helps him be more in tune with himself, boring a slap by the hand of life with his whole debt. Additionally, I like the twist that Hosamichi's father actually made the show, and due to the lack of success with it, it caused him to be an awful father. And I don't remember if they said it, but I assume it also led to him being saddled with the giant debt he has to work off. So yeah, as much as he also loves the show, he has a decent reason to not be enthusiastic about it, creating the issue of him being unable to help properly power the mech that is powered by the love of that show. As for the other battery girls, Yuki is fine, and Misha shows up too late for me to really have a solid opinion on. The villains are meh at best. Again, the issue is that they're trying to make a few of them redeemable, and again, you just can't, given the lore. But they're mostly arc-specific villains, with each one being tied to one of the three battery girls, with the commander being tied to Hosamichi specifically. But they lose, and they stop the big plan, and they don't end the war yet, because I assume that'll be in later seasons, which the series probably is not getting. It's a bit mindless, and if you need action, it's there, but there's no real through line besides otaku culture good, censorship bad, and I could do better. So similar to my other fantasy writings, a few rules. I can't massively change the story, I have to use the same characters, and the same length. So my first goal is to give the series a message about the value of media. Basically take the Hosamichi and Ren storyline and show that the anime they both love is still valuable to making them better people, even if it's made by a big old bastard. Maybe add in the ability to separate the media we love from the terrible people who make it, if that isn't asking too much. I'm then going to add this season's villain, Akatsuki, to the storyline. As for me, it doesn't make sense that the evil entity would want to delete all media, as anyone who understands media can tell you is a great tool in convincing people to your beliefs. So in this version, the True Army is replacing otaku culture with its versions that idolize their values and beliefs. Also, the war has went on long enough to have converts join their ranks. So Akatsuki, instead of being a unredeemable fascist, is now a convert whose big flaw was lacking the media literacy to be able to tell that the content he was watching as a kid was propaganda. Essentially make Akatsuki and Ren two sides of the same coin. You can also apply this to Hayate, but she is not the main focus. Now that we have a more interesting through line and villain, we can move on to the tone of the show. I think the series needs to lean more into the absurd. It's almost there, as the commander for the rebels hits a lot of the right tones, but I feel it could be better applied to the story and design, as we're using the power of otaku culture, which is pretty dumb, so lean into it so it's less smug about it. For example, maybe for the idol, her mech weapons are all themed around pinlights, a pinlight lightsaber or missiles. That's a bit whimsical, Maybe have them fight on stages, defending various idle venues left in the rebel control area from attacks. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I think it helps. As for storylines, highlight that Hazumichi is kind of purposely avoiding Rin as he doesn't want to ruin her love for the show by revealing his backstory. Have the other girls help push Rin into addressing it, drop the "oh no, did they turn traitor" part, and replace it with him avoiding swapping to Rin's Garanndoll form in battle, and then having them overcome that trauma to win the day once they do that swap. With all these changes, I think you turn a average series at best into something more interesting, and hopefully do well enough to fund a second season, where you can better focus the story now that you have the setup out of the way. Maybe have Akatsuki question his beliefs in Rebel Jail and eventually join up. Reveal that Hazumichi's father is the director of the propaganda and beat him. Add a battery boy to the group. You have options. But that's how I would have fixed this first season. So did I do a good? What would you have done? Leave a comment or any of the other YouTube actions that pleases the algorithm. Shilling! Bye!